What? I don't want to rule anything. Being king of the pirates is about being more free than anyone.
This is nuts because the One Piece flag, the Straw Hat Jolly Roger, is trending.
In Indonesia, the citizens of the country have started to raise the Straw Hats flag.
One Piece has sparked protests before, but this might be the first time a pirate flag is being treated like a threat to national security.
One Piece. A series that has become synonymous with the very idea of anime and manga. Since its debut in 1997, it has become a phenomenon, reaching practically every corner of the globe in its influence, including the country of Indonesia, where it has proven to be very, very big. In fact, the highest grossing anime film of all time in Indonesia is a One Piece film, One Piece Film Red. The series is just very popular there. So popular, it's now being seen by certain people as a symbol of treason. And no, I'm not making this up. So from what I can find, a lot of this stems from the upcoming celebration for Indonesia's 80th Independence Day on August 17th. And many citizens feel as though the lead up to this event is a good time to express their ire with certain choices of the Indonesian government. Now, during this time of national pride, it's typical for a nation to fly the country's flag. In this case, of course, that would be the Indonesian flag. However, many disillusioned citizens have taken to flying a different flag. That's right, the iconic Jolly Roger of the Straw Hat Pirates. Now, on the surface, this doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? I mean, it's One Piece, one of the single most popular Japanese properties of all time. People all over the world probably have these flags, some even hanging up on their porch or something like that. Typically, it really isn't that deep. However, the sheer traction that the Straw Hat flag has gotten in Indonesia as an act of protest has kind of riled up some officials in the Indonesian government. I mean, it's gotten to the point that prominent political figures in Indonesia are being compared to straight up One Piece villains like Kaido and Big Mom. And this discourse has gotten so large, it's actually prompted certain Indonesian government officials to speak on the matter directly. For example, some politicians have actually come out in favor of it, such as the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle lawmaker Dedi Yevrista Torres, who sees this method of protest as a desirable alternative to other actions.
This should be seen as a public expression of criticism, which is part of a democratic society. This kind of symbolic action is better than street protests that could turn violent.
There have been instances, however, of other politicians being much more critical once this trend began to pick up steam. For example, the Indonesian Deputy House Speaker Sufmi Dasko Ahmad had this to say.
This is not a coincidence. There is a coordinated attempt to divide the nation. Let's stand united. We must collectively resist such actions. Not everyone wants Indonesia to advance. As we grow, there will always be those who oppose it. Let's unite and push back.
This is a sentiment shared with Firmin Subagio, a member of the House of Representatives, who has said that actions like these might be considered an act of treason. Which, I mean, that's definitely not something a One Piece villain would say or anything like that. And it seems as though the Indonesian government is at least considering taking actions to try to curb this dissent. Recently, the Indonesian Minister of Human Rights, Natalius Pigai, has pushed for a ban on flying the Straw Hat flag at the Indonesian Independence Day celebration, which I honestly cannot even believe that those words are coming out of my mouth earnestly, but here we are. According to him, regulations like these abide by international law and wouldn't be opposed by other international organizations like the United Nations. Which, like, can you imagine a UN official skimming down a document of laws and somewhere on the list it says you cannot fly the flag from the hit anime One Piece? What's even happening here right now? I'm not exactly sure how adamant about this the government will be, because historically, according to Heriansyah Hamza, a constitutional law lecturer at Mullah Warman University, something like this hasn't been entirely illegal under Indonesian law.
The hoisting of the flag is not prohibited as long as it's not higher or larger than the Indonesian flag. In many cases, the position of the One Piece flag remains below the Indonesian flag. Criticism like this should be answered with dialogue, not a search for legal loopholes to suppress citizens. If the government instead hunts down those who raise the One Piece flag, it means the state is neglecting the constitutional mandate and tends to show an authoritarian face.
Hamza also pointed out that while it is illegal to fly another flag over the Indonesian flag, this is something that really only applies to, flags that actually represent non-fictional entities such as other countries or criminal organizations. And yeah, the Straw Hats could definitely be considered criminals in the world of One Piece, but they're also, not real. I'm baffled that the government is even talking about this. Instead of trying to address people's concerns, they're just going after some made-up anime flag. And I sincerely doubt it's going to keep this trend from continuing. One Piece is proving to be a banner that the Indonesian citizens can unite under. I mean, look at this one Twitter account. I believe its name translates to Together with Citizens, and it's dedicated entirely to posting about the issues happening in Indonesia. And oh my goodness, what's that I see? The funny thing is that while recently this has become a big thing in Indonesia, this isn't exactly new. In fact, One Piece has been showing up in quite a few protests around the world lately, from the UK all the way to Turkey. These protests include the ongoing Palestinian conflict, as well as a Turkish presidential candidate being unlawfully arrested. It's all pretty insane, but at the same time, it's also a testament to just how insanely massive and influential One Piece has become. Like let me paint for you exactly how absurd One Piece's growth and influence is with raw numbers. Superman. Everyone knows Superman, right? Probably one of the most recognizable characters in all of fiction. Since his debut in 1938, nearly 90 years ago, his comics have sold a collective 600 million copies worldwide. And that's counting everything within his nearly 90-year history, which involves many different artists, editors, and writers all contributing to this one character. Now look at One Piece. One Piece debuted in 1997, nearly 30 years ago. Like a third of the time Superman has been around as a concept. Yet One Piece has almost caught up to it in terms of comics sold, with over 550 million units. And within its lifetime, it's almost basically guaranteed to become the best-selling comic book ever made. And the majority of it is from one guy's brain. I mean, sure, he has a team that he works with and editors and stuff, but for the most part, it's him and his vision. A vision that has made Oda the most successful Japanese author of all time and has entered him into the top 10 most successful fiction authors just ever in existence. One Piece's reach is truly mind-boggling. I mean, look at this guy. I mean, who even is this guy? Just some jobber in a suit or something? No, actually, that is Emmanuel Macron, the president of France. And what's that in the background of his office? Oh my gosh, it's one of those absurdly expensive weeb statues of Nico Robin. That's right, the president of France is a Nico Robin stan. In fact, Oda himself personally gifted a signed piece of art to the French president. If that's not enough, look here. This is Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, who is a massive One Piece fan. During a trip he took to Japan in 2016, he personally met Oda himself and got his autograph. One Piece, it's just a global juggernaut at this point. And well, I can't imagine what all of this must be like for the man who created it. One Piece started out as this really simple, fun little story about pirates, inspired by Oda's own love for pirates from his childhood. But it has evolved into something that I seriously doubt even he could have foreseen. It's beyond just a simple story about pirates now. It's a tale of what it means to truly seek freedom from those that wish to suppress it. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why One Piece has spread around the globe to the degree that it has. It's a timeless story that anyone can relate to. Because at the end of the day, all anyone wants is their own freedom. To be able to make their own choices and live the life they want to live. That's why so many people are inspired inspired by the story of Luffy and the other Straw Hats, and why they choose to fly this flag in particular, because it symbolizes a dream that people in the real world share with the Straw Hats. The dream of freedom and fighting against a massive control-hungry entity that wants to take that freedom away. That's what One Piece is, and I think that if you ever needed a greater example of how anime can change the world, well, this is it. I've seen people react to this movement that's happening in Indonesia, saying that hoisting this flag is cheesy or cringe or whatever, and that something as silly as anime shouldn't be involved in things like this. And I have to say, I don't really agree with that at all. Sure, it's easy to view anime and a lot of media as just entertainment, something only meant to be consumed and make you happy for a brief period of time before you have to wake up in the morning and go to work. But it isn't just that, it's art. And the entire point of art is to make you feel an emotion. Happy, sad, angry, hopeful, nostalgic. Art is meant to move you. I mean, I've said this before on this channel, but an anime is what inspired me to get my first job. It's more than just entertainment. It can change who we are as people. And that's what makes One Piece truly special. Not just how it makes us laugh when the Straw Hats do something silly or makes us roar with hype when Luffy punches one of the bad guys. There's just something so primordial about this story. About this one kid taking on the entire world that connects every single one of us together.